Welcome to GIllette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. The Patriots, after a 2-2 start, so many people writing them off, have made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. They are taking on Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I think, Chris, people would have looked at an Andrew Luck Indianapolis Colts game as a walkover, but I think after watching them really dismantle Peyton Manning and the Broncos in Denver, that narrative has changed a little bit. Why so much?
I think it's changed for a couple of reasons. First of all, Andrew Luck has gotten on a bit of a roll, quite frankly. Offensively, he's doing things that maybe he wasn't capable of doing earlier in his career. He's a bit of a mobile quarterback, so he presents a bit of a different skill set than your traditional pocket passer. And I also think, too, that the Colts have improved on both sides of the ball. They're running the ball a little bit more consistently now than, say, they were when the Patriots faced them back in November. And they're doing a little bit better job stopping the run. So there's a few things coming into play when you're talking about the Patriots and the Colts this game as opposed to the game in November.
There are a couple of players also on the Colts defense that are here that were not there in that November 16th Patriots 42-20 win. This Colts defense, I think, is much more stout than the one the Patriots faced in November in Indy.
At the same time, I don't think that they are within the same class as some of the other defenses that this Patriots team has faced in AFC Championship games of a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
So you think this Colts defense is not quite as good as the one the Patriots saw in Denver last year?
No, I don't, and I think ultimately that's going to be one of the things where this game is going to turn. I wrote about it this week on WEEI.com, the fact that this might be a reason that the Patriots and Tom Brady in particular might be poised for a bit of an offensive breakout in this game. They made a lot of big changes on the defensive side of the ball. Arthur Jones is back. Vontae Davis is still playing at a very, very high level at the cornerback position. But at the same time, when you stack this Colts defense up against the teams that the Patriots have played in the AFC Championship the previous years, I don't think this group measures up.
I know you were in the Patriots locker room, and one subject that was a bit of an awkward silence generator was the word turnover. And obviously the Patriots were very fortunate on Saturday to get away with some fumbles on the field. Bill Belichick talked about that on Tuesday in his conference call with the media. Look, we've got to do a better job, period, he said, of taking care of the ball. What was your takeaway from the ball protection in the locker room? What was the gist of the players?
They win the turnover battle, they win the game. I think our friend Ryan Hannibal had the stat, they're 18-1 in the postseason when they win the turnover battle. That is absolutely key this week. One of the other things, as it relates to Andrew Luck and how to go about defending Andrew Luck, again, Luck presents a little bit of a different skill set, but for whatever reason, for a very good quarterback, he turns the ball over an awful lot. He turns the ball over an awful lot against the Patriots. 9 turnovers, 8 picks, and a fumble in 3 career games against New England. That's definitely something to look for come Sunday.
And I wrote about that today on WEEI.com, that the last time the Patriots faced Andrew Luck in the playoffs, the only other time I should say, was last year. 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. Lifetime Andrew Luck has 9 touchdowns in 5 playoff games, but 10 interceptions. So to your point, Chris, he is definitely turnover prone. That's one area where I think the Patriots are going to try to disguise a lot of what they're doing in the secondary, the linebacking core, and try to force more of those turnovers.
One of the things that has kind of sprung up around Luck, and I'm starting to buy into it more and more. Remember the narrative very early on in Peyton Manning's career that Bill Belichick was in Peyton Manning's head?
Yep.
I think there's some of that in this case here. When you're talking about Luck, when you're talking about Belichick, Belichick has done a very good job. Belichick and Patricia specifically have done a very good job game planning to beat Andrew Luck. Now, a lot of that is good complementary football. The Patriots get up, they get an early lead, they make them throw the ball. The other point is really the Colts, they're a little bit better running the football than they were in November. Not much, they're a little bit better. So they might be a little bit more complementary when you're talking about them on the offensive side of the football, but there's still an element of that offense being a one-dimensional offense that I think ultimately the Patriots can exploit.
And one thing Bill Belichick told us here at GIllette Stadium on Wednesday was they're a different type of running team. Boom Herron is really busted out onto the scene. The former Ohio State star played in 2012 with the Bengals and then the last 2 years with the Colts. He has really gotten a lot of touches in the run game. Obviously, Ahmad Bradshaw was lost for the season in that November 16th game against the Patriots, so he's not there. This is not a power running game, but rather a speed running game, and that is something I think the Patriots have to be aware of, that maybe Andrew Luck looks to check down to Boom Herron out of the backfield like he did on Sunday against the Broncos.
They're faster on the carpet. They're a team that's built, as we've seen a lot of those great Colts teams over the last few years, they're built for the indoors. They're a speed team on both sides of the ball, but to your point, Boom Herron is more of a kind of a multi-dimensional threat. He also brings a bit of an element of the passing game as well. He can hurt you that way. So he can hurt you on a couple of different levels. I want to see this team outside in the cold. I know they played very well last weekend against the Broncos in Denver. If they can continue that momentum going forward.
Well, I got to tell you though, Chris, the news is not great for the Patriots because it's supposed to be in the mid-40s for kickoff on Sunday. There is a chance of rain, steady rain, and we all know how Bill Belichick loves to talk about the forecast several days before kickoff. But the weather is not going to be biting cold like it was Saturday night against the Ravens. So that's another factor I think that you put in the Colts column in terms of staying competitive. Another thing that I think goes into the Colts column is their coaching. Chuck Pagano has really got the karma going with his team.
He really does. And this is a team that on offense, with Pat Hamilton, the offensive coordinator, Greg Mineski on defense, they're where they need to be. I'm shocked that they've made it this far, quite frankly. I think they're a very good young team, and again, they do a lot of good things on both sides of the ball. They're a young team, and I wonder if this stage ultimately, not just for the coaching staff, and this is something the coaching staff I think needs to take into consideration, but I wonder if this stage is a little bit too big for them at this point in their overall professional development. I'm going to be fascinated to see how they respond if they're pressured on Sunday.
All right, let's talk about the Patriots a little bit. Everybody and their brother wants to know, why don't you just give it to Jonas Gray 37 more times for 201 yards on Sunday? Case closed, game over.
Yeah, it would seem to make a lot of sense. Look,
but
when you do look at the matchups in this game, we said a lot of good things about the Colts. At the same time, they still struggle to stop the run. The fact that they allowed, I believe it was 90-something yards against the Broncos last week, that was the first time since November that they've held another team under 100 yards. I wouldn't be surprised to see whether it's Jonas Gray, whether it's LeGarrette Blount, whether it's Brandon Bolden, could be even Shane Vereen, really get the ball 20 to 25 times in this one. I expect this game offensively to be the exact opposite of what we saw last week against the Ravens, where the Patriots didn't hand the ball off once in the second half in that one, still ended up winning that thing 35-31. I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are flipped and the Patriots end up running the ball 30-40 times against the Colts.
And the Colts defensive line, I don't think is quite as stout as the Ravens defensive line. You're not talking about Haloti Nadas in the middle of the line. They're still good. They're still athletic, as we like to say. They're very fast.
And they're better than they were. They're better than they were back in November. They're Arthur Jones and they're a bit more stout and they're a little bit better against the run, but not so much to suggest that they're going to be able to come in here and knock off the week.
Tom Brady was talking here on Wednesday about the mental toughness and the intensity he brings. And he said, for most of the week, I'm laid back. Most of you guys who are here all the time know that about me. I'm just chilling in the locker room, busting with guys like Vince Wilfork. Wilfork even said he trash talks with Brady to try to make it look like a game during practice so they're ready for the week. But Brady said those 3 hours during the game, I let it rip. I am a different person. Giselle even asked, what's wrong with you during the week, as he tries to get into that frame of mind at home. Talk about what it is for Tom Brady to be back in this championship game for a 9th time.
9 times.
Yeah.
9 times in the AFC Championship game. That's quite remarkable when you consider that Peyton Manning, his polar opposite, has been one and done 9 times over the course of his career when it comes to the postseason. So these games are old hat for Brady. The one thing that I would be mindful of if I'm a Patriots fan, though, and we've seen it a couple times, and our colleague Tom Kern brought it up on a radio show on Sunday, he brought it up a couple of times, Brady sometimes gets a little too amped up.
And Kern brought that up here on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, and it's something to look for. Sometimes he brings too much energy. You need to have a level of enthusiasm. You need to have that energy. You need to be able to bring that attitude to the field. But at the same time, you also need to be measured in your approach and your aggressiveness, and you can't go too far over the top. A lot of times we see that with 3 and outs early on, and you kind of have to come back to earth a little bit. They have to work to find a happy medium.
Okay, I'll tell you one area that concerns me with Tom Brady, where that amped up approach may be getting him in trouble, is at the end of halves, at the end of the first half. 4 times now we've seen key turnovers, interceptions thrown by Tom Brady. We saw it against the Ravens, and the Ravens didn't let him off the hook. They drove right down the field for the go-ahead score right before halftime. That's got to change this week, that kind of carelessness with the ball before half, trying desperately to get a score.
We saw that before the half in the game out there in Indianapolis. Made one of his worst throws of the year.
On a throw to Gronk.
Exactly, on a throw to Gronk. Mike Adams with a pick. Mike Adams actually picked off Brady twice in that game. He's a guy to look for when you're talking about matchups in this one. But yeah, I think your point is very well taken in that you have to be exceptionally mindful of walking that fine line between being aggressive because you want to score and you want to put 3 or 7 on the board before the end of the half, and being mindful of what the other defense is throwing at you.
All right, what is the key to the game and who wins?
I think the ability to run the ball and stop the run is going to play a huge role in this game on both sides, not just for New England, but for Indianapolis. I think New England has got a little bit more on both offense and defense in that regard. I also think, look, the New England pass defense is playing really, really well. As banged up as they were in the second half against the Ravens, they still only allowed 1 touchdown. I think New England ends up winning this thing. Again, I think the stage is a little bit too big for Indy at this point in their overall professional development. I think New England ends up winning this thing. I'm going to say 30-20.
Okay, let's throw an extra one, a bonus question at you, if you will. Who wins the NFC and who would the Patriots be playing in the Super Bowl? Who do you like?
I think it's going to be Seattle just by dint of their home field advantage. I think that Seattle at home right now is just too tough. I think if it's in Green Bay, it might be a different story. If Aaron Healthy was 100% healthy, Aaron Rodgers was 100% healthy, it might be a different story. But ultimately, I think Seattle's just too tough. I think we're going to see a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl.
All right, we will have complete coverage on WEEI.com. Yours truly, Christopher Price and Ryan Hannibal, as always, here at GIllette Stadium, bringing you the coverage from kickoff to the end of the game, and then we'll find out if the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl for the 6th time. Chris, that would be remarkable in the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era. Christopher Price, outside GIllette Stadium, I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.